Hi.
Hello, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Elizabeth. Welcome to Get Rolling.
Get Rolling is a video interview series profiling Newfoundland and Labrador based directors and producers.
In this series, brought to you by the Nickel Film Festival, Andrew and I interview three local filmmakers, Jenny Hawley, John Batcher, and Allison White, about their lives and careers in film and television. This episode features Allison White.
Allison White is a producer, a director, and the founder of Sara Pictures. Her recent feature film, Sweetland, just finished shooting this fall, and she has produced such films as Hammer and Cast No Shadow. I hope you enjoy our interview. How are you?
I'm good. Just kind of in recovery mode after a shooting marathon for the past months.
Was Sweetland? Was that what it was?
Yeah, it was like Peter Pan and Wendy, and then Sweetland, and then I did this commercial thing for like a couple weeks as well after that.
Cool. Yeah, sweet. I think my pal Amelia was on Sweetland, I think.
Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and production is going good for that. Is that over, Allison, or?
Yeah, it wrapped September 17th, so it wrapped just over a month ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was like the hardest thing I've ever made, but it was awesome.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see it. My partner Cindy, she's very she loves that book, so she's super pumped. I've never read it, but I know Michael's work, and yeah, she's excited.
Yeah, I mean, we had to take a lot out from the book, obviously, but such great material to work from. So rewarding to be able to like take someone else's material like Michael's and like
for sure
turn it into a movie. I'm so stoked about the editing. So yeah.
So what made you pursue a career in the industry? I guess we're asking, like, what's your origin story? You know, this is for, I guess, people who want to get into filmmaking and break into get their foot in the door. So yeah, what's your origin story? You're a superhero.
I don't have a wild origin story. I basically I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to like filmmaking growing up. I used to watch movies at the Garrick Theater when I was like 5. Myself and 3 friends had a club called the Dress Up Club. We would use one of my friend's dad's video cameras and record scenes. But I mean, I became interested in like drama club, and I was going to go to theater school as an actor, and I did that, and I was like, there's no way I'm an actor. But I wound up on one of NIFCO's first time kind of filmmaking courses. And I, as they say, caught the bug, and I was doing an English degree at the time, so I completed that, and then I went to film school and just kind of didn't, I didn't stop from there. So it was a little traditional, but yeah.
Right. What was your dad's video camera that you were recording on?
It wasn't my dad's, it was my friend's dad's.
Oh, your friend's dad's, yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. I was literally 5 or 6 years old, so I have no idea what it was.
Yeah. I remember my dad had one of those like old, those shoulder ones, Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so maybe we can go into kind of like when you were starting out and getting started in the industry. Did you have like initial roadblocks and kind of like challenges maybe that came up right away, maybe immediately, that you kind of had to to deal with just right out of the gate?
I mean, I guess at the time when I started, I finished film school and I stayed in Toronto for a few years. So I think at the time you're like, how do I make money, but also how do I make my own things?
Yeah.
I mean, and back then I think the challenges more came later when you start making bigger things. But I just started working at I worked in post-production in Toronto, and then I would just make stuff on the side, and I made a short film on my credit card, so maybe my credit card bill was an early obstacle. But right. I was just ignorant then and didn't care. I would have done whatever it took, and I to an extent still do that. But but I think I think it's like then it was just like buying my freedom to work on my projects was my main goal, So I would work and then just try to do what I could evenings and weekends on my own projects.
Right.
I don't know if it really answered your question, but there's lots of roadblocks to talk about.
Yeah, totally. And maybe we can get into some of the later ones, like when we kind of get into that. And I guess like growing up and making movies with your friends, was there anything that kind of like inspired you initially in terms of films or filmmakers, or even any kind of art in general that you really took from?
I mean, I grew up in Bonavista, Vista, and really I could only see blockbusters that played at the Garrett Theater or that we could rent at Cowboys's video store.
Right.
So I would like watch movies a lot with my dad, like Predator and The Shining and like any kind of movie. So like I found often so I didn't get exposure to like art house films or a lot of different just like the films I'm into now, but
Right.
the films I did like, I mean, I must have watched, I don't know how many times I watched The Shining. I love The Shining, back then. I mean, now inspirations as I went along, like in film school, when I was like kind of really discovering what a producer was and that I wanted to produce, I became obsessed with Christine Vachon, who's a really prolific independent producer out of New York. And I read all of her books, and like she inspired me in terms of like finding an artist or a project and like elevating it and how creative producing works that way. And then I would say filmmakers like Lynn Ramsey, who to me, like I love dark material, and she takes really dark material and observes it so beautifully sometimes and so poetically, and I admire that.
At what point did you think you could kind of do this, as like a professional gig? You know what I mean? I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't know I could make money doing this." You know what I mean? So what was that moment for you where you're like, "I'm doing this. Yeah, cool."
I mean, I guess, I have very supportive parents, and I always thought I could do whatever I wanted, but I never really thought about, like growing up, I didn't think about filmmaking as a profession. I think just because I wasn't exposed to it at all.
Right.
So I suppose when I was on that NIFCO course, I just suddenly loved something. And I never thought about whether I could or couldn't do it. I just was chasing it from that point on.
Yeah, cool. And to go off that, in terms of like the resources of in St. John's, like NIFCO, is there any kind of advice you can give to somebody like looking to break in who are local filmmakers in St. John's, in terms of like how to approach NIFCO, what NIFCO can do for you, or any other kind of organizations that can kind of help?
Yeah, I mean, I think that NIFCO is super accessible. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, NIFCO is very accessible. And there's courses you can take, and they make several first-time films a year, so you can volunteer. So I always think that's a good idea of just like getting to know people. You just want to. One of the biggest things is like meeting people that are like-minded, that like the movies you want to make as well. If you want to direct or produce or write. If you want to work on films, I mean, in television, there's tons and tons of work. So I feel like there's like NIFCO, there's like the Women's Film Festival, the Nickel Film Festival, and it's a very small industry here, so it's easy to connect, I think, with people. Right. But I think, if film is your jam, you need to work on films. When you work on TV shows, sometimes it's bigger. Yeah. And it takes a lot of your time. So I'd say like, make stuff. It's like so many people have cameras, shoot stuff, write stuff, collaborate,
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that anyway, about collaboration. I know you work with Christian Sparks a lot, and I guess let's just kind of dive into collaboration a little bit more, which I believe in as what it's so important. So how do you know when you find your people, or how do you kind of make an effort to keep your people, and how do how do you find those people, in terms of more so than going through, like, if you meet somebody, how do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like it's like dating. I don't know, like you just
That's
know.
right.
But when Christian and I met, like we just started talking about movies all the time, and we loved the same movies, and we kind of like the same things. It just made sense. I wasn't analyzing it, at the time. But I think for me, it's important to work with people when I do projects that I'm co-producing with other people. Like I have to really like these people. We have to have the same philosophies about how to treat people,
Mhm.
and we have to have creatively line up, like, like for the most part. So I think you just like get to know people before you jump in with them.
Right, right. And
And
yeah, and in terms of, let's kind of go back to the work of like, just say, production. How important is it to find a working relationship? Like, is that something you should be kind of considering when starting a project? Like, okay, how are we going to work together, or do you just kind of find it as you go?
yeah, I mean, it's interesting to it depends. I guess it depends on the roles. Like, but I think that I always kind of say I don't want to work with someone that I can't like have a beer with or have a glass of wine with, meaning like there needs to be some kind of friendship, and we need to identify with each other, and because we're going to spend years together, and we're going
Yeah,
to face conflict, we're going to face very hard decisions together,
right.
and we want to support each other and know that we can like talk out those things.
Yeah.
Sometimes even when I'm hired as a line producer on a like an indie movie or something, I kind of ask the producer, like I like go through, like it sounds corny, but I'm like, these are my philosophies on how we treat our crew, like in like and like or how we deal with these certain things, because they're the boss, and if you don't line up, then it's I don't want to compromise on certain things.
Yeah.
So I think knowing what you kind of stand for, or what things matter to you, and things that you won't compromise on are, and I don't even mean compromise creatively, I just mean in like how you do business or whatever. um I think once you know those things, and you should make that clear to another person, because like you're only going to screw over your future self if you
Right.
don't.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. um wh- okay, I'm going to ask you like an age-old question. Like, this is like something I always hear and you probably know what I'm going to say. Attending a film school, like, what's are you in the camp of, well, I mean, I guess this can be more of a conversation, but like, you can be whatever, I guess, right? You know what I mean? But do you have any advice for people who are maybe trying to decide what they want to do, or maybe what path is right for them? If somebody had the question, should I go to film school, or should I
Right.
not, or just get on-set work? What's your advice, I guess, to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like I'm not in a camp of like film school's a
Yeah.
must, or it's terrible. Like I think it's like where you're at in your life and what you want to get out of film school, and like what you want to do. I mean, maybe if you're like alone in a city, then film school is just a place for you to connect with a bunch of potential collaborators.
Right.
Or maybe you are literally going to learn a trade. But also you can do those things without going to film school. I think it's like personally where you're at in terms of like your confidence and like what you're looking to get out of things. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly like spending 20 grand, is not always awesome, but I think like in schools like that I didn't attend, which is like the CFC, um, so many people I know that graduated from the CFC are like awesome people, and they like created this network, and they work together, and they like, which is like really important in filmmaking. It's like bigger than St. John's. I mean, the Canadian film industry is small. So I think film school is good for that reason, but I don't think it's like absolutely necessary. Like you can also just, I mean, some of my greatest education is just working on films.
What about, okay, let's say, is there an important lesson you've ever learned from a previous project of yours? Something that was kind of, you know, a major light bulb for you through your own experiences of working on a film set?
Um, this is a boring one, but it's like always have full-time accountants on your film. I don't
Right.
care how small it is. I don't care if you're not getting tax credits.
Yeah,
Hire accountants.
right.
Specific lessons. I mean, I think I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think sometimes you like kid yourself or you lie to yourself about like what you need to do something, and then you'll find that out down the road, you know. And like sometimes I know this might not work, and then it happens. So like just I think you just got to really like check yourself as you're like going into a project of what you need. I mean, I think, oh yeah, I mean, I was going to talk to you, this is one of the later questions, but I think like not rushing prep or a script is like a big lesson I learned. And I also learned if there's something you don't like in this script, I'd say there's like a 95% chance you won't like it on screen. And you think like cast might change it, or a variety of things might change it. But if you want a chance at like your movie being great, your script at least has to be great. And
Right.
those things will always find themselves on screen, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's say, in terms of, again, your creative projects, have you ever had to make a difficult artistic choice? Why and what was that?
Oh, hmm. There are so many difficult artistic choices. There's a lot of times as a producer, even like, you know, like financial decisions become creative because they dictate what you can and can't do.
Right.
Um, you know, I mean, on Sweetland, we made a lot of decisions. It was a pretty low budget, and it was very ambitious, and a lot of decisions of things we did, you know, dictated everything else we couldn't do. For example, like, I don't know, this is kind of boring, but it's like buying, like we had to get a double of our kid actor, like a physical body made because of certain stunts we decided not to risk, but it was very expensive. And so, you know, that dictated like limiting, you know, we didn't have a contingency for more shooting days,
Right.
etc. But I mean, I think it's like you know, or like things like, it's not great examples, but um we found an actor we loved and we had to push 6 months to do it, which meant like every single crew member in town was booked. And it was much more challenging for a variety of reasons, but it was totally worth it for that cast member, who was Mark Lewis Jones, who's amazing.
You're director, writer, producer, but you've also done line producing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you answered this with the accountant thing, but I guess my other question was, as a line producer, you know, what's that like going into a production opposed to like just being a producer or, you know, the creative,
Right.
you know, director, writer, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, well, line producing is like, it's a hard job. It's, in a way, it's easier obviously than producing, because like you come in, you do your job, and you leave again. It's, I mean, I maybe I'm a bit of a control freak, and I like to run things the way I run things. So I always make sure the producer's on board with that. But yeah, I mean, it's good. You kind of go in and you know specifically what you have to do, and that you have to like run the ship that someone else is kind of like
Right.
set off or whatever, and you follow it through. It's hard though. I mean, it's managing people, it's managing a lot of decisions that were made before you,
Right.
and you have to you know, it's relentless. But you know, I used to, there was a point in which I didn't want to take jobs like that, like production manager or line producer jobs, but because it's like sometimes it feels like it's detracting from what everything else I'm building, but
Mhm.
I never regret it because I always like work with wicked people and then down the road do something else with them, or I learn a lot. I don't think you'll always like learn from making other movies. So
Right.
sometimes if it's someone else's movie, that's like totally fine, I think.
Right. Cool. Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank
Oh,
you. Okay, so I asked you that. Let's see. Okay, well, this kind of goes. So, what's involved with a director's prep or a producer's prep, or even let's say just generic filmmaker? I'm a indie filmmaker. I want to start out. I want to do my first project. What's my prep? What's your advice?
I mean, especially if you're early in your career, you can never, I mean, I suppose you could, but needing lots of prep. I mean, we usually when we make films, like I I myself and Christian, when I'm producing, we will scout for months leading up to anyone else scouting with us. Like, I don't know how long we scouted Sweetland and how much we scouted Sweetland, like way before people get to town.
Yeah.
And I really encourage directors to take, like, especially new directors, but like just do that. I mean, you're not being paid for it, but I mean, it will pay off. And presumably it's your baby. So,
Yeah.
I think you can't prep enough. So I mean, for me, I'm rambling a bit, but prep is like, I mean, you all like developing the project can also not be understated. If the script is not great, the movie won't be great. And like
Mhm.
as you get on in your career, you'll really understand how much work it takes to get there. Like writing a draft and shooting it is, I don't think is a good idea. I'm sure there are exceptions. So I think that once a project is fully developed and very ready to start prepping, then it's scouting, it's casting, it's like turning over every single rock before you make those decisions, those like key decisions that will dictate everything, like cast and locations and like a palette, a look and feel, watching tons of movies, referencing what you like and how you want to tell this visual story, like all that good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Um, all right. So I'm just like crossing off my questions as I go. I'm like,
Yeah, oh
okay,
good.
that one is done. Okay. um, um, personally, is there somebody in your past or someone right now that has influenced you artistically, that you kind of draw inspiration of, and not so much like like a filmmaker, or what? It was somebody in your life that really
Oh,
helps you out. Yeah.
oh, that helps me.
Or just that guy keeps you going. You know what I mean? Yeah.
um I mean, I do you mean like how do you mean? Like a
Uh,
mentor?
yeah, it can be a mentor. It could be just somebody who just is like maybe somebody who who said keep going, or somebody who really helped you just to kind of find your path in this industry. And I guess I mean it doesn't have to be anybody artistically, but
Yeah,
it can as well. Totally. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, it's funny. I think it changes all the time in a way, but like you really do need people's help, I think, for a variety of reasons. I feel like I have many, like I think my parents were like my biggest supporters and helpers, encouraging me whatever I was doing, and
Right.
like financially helped me, but just like always made me feel like I could do whatever. But then I have like my BFF Amy Joy, who like feeds me while I'm extremely busy. She'll just be like,
Yeah.
Tupperware supper, I know you're not eating. And keeps me alive, which she literally did this last few months a lot. And I have like producers along the way. I mean, Paul Pope has tremendously helped me. It's funny, we were making Sweetland and he helped me out with a location. And I thought about how when I bought the rights to the book, how I didn't know how to do that. And I called him and I was like, what do I do? Or like, the publisher said, and he's like, come to my office and I'll help you. And he like helped me navigate that. and I have like along the way, I've like I go to markets and I meet other filmmakers. Like I have a plethora of people I keep in touch with that
Right.
when I have an issue, or I call them, or if I need to vent because producing is very hard. And you can't really vent to people on set, and I really rely on that a lot. So yeah.
Right. Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, that one was a bit of a curveball, but that's great. Talked about collaboration. Okay, let's see. This is cool. In your opinion, what's the toughest aspect of making films in 2021?
In 2021,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's two answers to that question.
Yeah.
I think that I think it takes a lot of work and commitment to make a script be ready for filming, for making. And I think that I think often people like, it's hard, it takes years, and like often people like they just, maybe we'll settle a bit, or we will not continue to push ourselves to make it like the best version of itself. I think that takes such hard commitment, whether you're like editing or you're just like revising the script, or like recognizing you need to listen to a note. I think that, and it needs to come from largely a director, but also a producer or writer. And it sometimes we're just like, we want to finish it, or we want to start shooting, and we can't recognize that like this is like a piece of art that needs to really be worked, because there's so many, when you start shooting or editing, like there's so many things that will like try to tear it down, and so many challenges, so you really need to be ready. And yeah, I just think that's just like the act of that is like difficult. It's kind of a cop-out answer, because it's just like, but I think we just forget and think like completing it is like the thing, but you really need to push to make it great.
Right.
The second answer to that question, I think it's very difficult to finance a film in
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
Specifically film, it's like, which is all I can really speak to. And that's the boring answer, but it's very hard.
Yeah. Very true answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so for let's say, as a producer or director, or even just a creator of a film project, is there a responsibility to the audience, and what is that?
I mean, I don't know. Is there a responsibility? I think it's an art, right? You should, I mean, to an extent, I think that you're creating something that will be hopefully viewed by lots of people out in the world. So I think there are responsibilities in terms of like respect and exploitation of like, that you don't want to, I don't think is like nice to do in a world where like many people might see your film. But in terms of like, I mean, most producers would maybe not say this, but I think especially if you're earlier in your career, you have a story to tell, you have an opinion, you have a vision. I don't let, if the audience will receive it well, really like dictate much.
Right. Yeah.
Because like, what's the point?
Right.
Like I mean, I guess if you were like pursuing something very commercial, obviously it's very different, but I don't know. I think you really need to listen to your voice, and I think that will bring you greater success and bring greater projects. So yeah.
Okay, what was your first job in the film industry, or what was your first film job? Maybe let's take industry out of it. What was the first thing you got paid to do in film?
I guess, I mean, what was my first film job? I guess it would have been like a PA, I guess, I think it was on a short film in Toronto when I was in film school. I did like some films on weekends. it's not too exciting of a thing. I didn't really remember it, like, it's what's weird. But yeah, I mean, I did a bunch of PAing. I used to be an assistant editor. I was a TAD, like I was a trainee AD, and I was like, I think a scripty. Like I did a bunch of just like one, like odd jobs on set. I worked in post a lot as well.
Right.
But it's good. I mean, I encourage people to like, if an opportunity presents itself, to like, especially if you want to be a director or producer or writer, it's cool to like see how people make things in
Yeah.
other departments. You can like really gain a lot of respect when you understand all departments.
Totally. Yeah.
What's that?
Cool. Sorry, what's that?
I feel like you were hoping for a funny story, and I don't
Oh
have.
yeah. Yeah. Have you ever left the coffee or the cap off the coffee pot? Yeah.
I once had to, in a volunteer job in the US, deliver cookies to my boss, who was an executive producer, and a celebrity at a coffee shop that was closed down because there was some joke they had, and I had to buy like 6 boxes of cookies and bring them to them, which was kind of funny, but that's all.
Okay. This one. Why is it hard to break into the film industry as a young filmmaker?
Why is it hard?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's pretty competitive out there, the film industry, but I I honestly, I guess it is hard. I'm like, I don't know if it is hard. I guess it's not hard to get a job, but I think that if we're talking about like it's hard to make great projects and have them get noticed. Um yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are making films, but maybe not a lot of people are making like really amazing, excellent films. And I think it take like I said, I think it takes a real lot of commitment. It takes You have to be like vulnerable, and you have to listen to people. You have to listen to notes. I mean, you don't have to listen and take their notes, but you at least have to be open to those notes.
Right.
And I think that it's like a vulnerable position to be in, and it's, your ego may suffer a little bit if you're, I don't know, you don't want to like listen, but it just takes a lot of hard work to see it through to the very, very end. And I don't think maybe that's for everyone.
Right. Right. Um,
I think,
so just to go on that, in terms of dedication, I guess this might be a bad question too, but how dedicated does a filmmaker have to be to kind of get there, right? To get to the point that they have their first project done, or they, you know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I think it's like if you have a passion for it, it's not like, I mean, it really doesn't feel like work if you have a passion for it. If you like it, if you're like dying to tell a story, I think it's like awesome and exciting. But yeah, I mean, like, it's not like showing up at a job and leaving it at 5 o'clock. It stays with you, and you also just like it's physical work, but it's also like reflection and analysis of like your work. So I mean, I think you just have to be prepared that if you want it to be excellent, you need to like put in that careful thought, work with the right people.
Mhm.
And if that sounds like a lot and you're not interested in that, then I think that's your answer. But I mean, if that's like exciting, because yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change what I do for anything, because I mean it's corny, but it's like if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, which is kind of true. So
Yeah.
I mean, I do work a lot, but but sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. But I think that it's also like the type of films you want to make. I think that if you are meticulous, et cetera, the like the varying hard work and dedication you have to put in, well, it varies. But I think that if you are ambitious, then yeah, you have to be prepared to inspire and lead people and see it through to the end.
Yeah, cool. And when somebody gets a project that, let's say it's the first project it's done, uh, when they start looking at, I guess, like the next steps of like festival circuits, what's the grind of is there a grind in the film festival, and what should people know about submitting and getting their films out there? Because it seems like that's a business and that's a whole thing on its own. Like that's
Yeah.
its own.
I mean, though, by the time you're there, it's not usually, by the time you're at a film festival, the grind is less. So
Right.
I would say,
Yeah.
um, but I think that, yeah, I mean, like, I think it's, what is the answer? Let's see. So I guess film festivals are important because you want people to see your film is like the whole point, and review your film, but also, it helps your next projects if you have a festival that has awards, or if you are in an A-list festival, it's like very like good for you getting funded again. And but like it's pretty simple these days where you use like what is it? I can't remember the name of it. The What is the festival site we use now?
Oh,
Film
film
Freeway.
freeway. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's pretty easy. It's like, I think it's really smart if the director or one of the key creatives like writes kind of something articulate in a director's statement, and you have some nice images and you put it out there. I would suggest to like short filmmakers to like, you strategize, you want to be ambitious and you want to apply to like the big hot festivals, but you also want to be realistic. So like not every film is going to play Cannes or Sundance, but it's only a festival fee, so you could try.
yeah.
But you kind of want to start with those. It's not as big of a deal with short films, but when you get into feature films, you have to very strategically. You don't want to screen at a small film festival and like lose your premiere status.
Mhm.
But I would just encourage you to like pick a number of how much money you want to spend, and then just like find the cool festivals you want to submit to, and just do it and go for it, because it's awesome to screen your film with an audience. And and it's just like, it's like the one kind of thing you get at the end of this long journey that is making a film is like getting an audience to see it with you and talking about it, which is great.
But what resources should all young filmmakers take advantage of, in your opinion?
What resources should all young filmmakers take advantage of? The internet.
Lovely answer. Yeah.
Resources that filmmakers should take advantage of. I mean, I think, I guess it depends on your goals, but assuming one wants to be a filmmaker, I think you can't watch enough movies. I think you should watch movies from the past, present, equally. I think you should know the greats that are out there that are recognized historically. I think that actual resources, I suppose, like in terms of, NIFCO and the NLFDC and the Women's Film Festival and the Nickel Film Festival locally. I think, I use IMDb Pro all the time. But in general, I mean, like, if if you have skills like you want to develop, there's just like seek that shit out. There's always ways to get better. I like did a little entertainment law certificate in Toronto a few years ago because I was like, I need to get better at this, and just constantly like talking with people, people that challenge me, people that inspire me. Like I just like I live and breathe it a bit, and I think it's like a part of it.
Networking is a big thing, obviously. So somebody maybe has like trepidations about like meeting new people and stuff like that. Any advice for them? I think we all deal with it in some way, but I
I
don't know if you have a secret for it.
I once said this to my friend Laura Churchill, and she made fun of me. But I was like, because networking and meetings are kind of two different things. But I used to be pretty intimidated by meetings, like when you're, whatever, going to LA and doing one-on-ones. And then I was like, but going to meetings, like you're making a new friend. And that's where she kind of laughed at me in a affectionate way. But but it's true. It's like I always just, when I'm doing a one-on-one meeting, I, you know, try to do my research obviously on who this person is, but I also just try to find like things to talk about that are not like businessy, that are like things, a movie I genuinely saw in the theater recently that I liked. And or like I remember once having a really tough meeting and the guy was so cold, but then we wound up talking about these like weird dog YouTube videos that we both had seen, and we were like laughing, and I was like, I really like turned that meeting around. And
Yeah, that's
it's like just being a human being and like how you connect with people.
right.
But I think like networking is tough. Like I never like going to events by myself. So ideally you get a buddy that, or like a friend that to go to events with you. And like, but I've also seen people at those events, like, and there's like a distributor, someone there, and the guy's like pitching them and really talking biz hard, and the distributor's like, dude, like, let's just have a drink. And
Yeah.
they didn't listen. And it's just like, you just have to like, I think it's best at networking events to just be yourself and hang out like you're at a party, as opposed to like trying to be too businessy constantly.
Yeah.
And then at some point, if there's an opportunity to exchange information, then you can do that later. But if someone like likes you as a person and sees you as fun, or like relates to you, then they'll remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a great answer. Okay, here's one. What keeps you motivated to make films?
Oh God, it's a hard time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling particularly cynical, but ultimately, like, I just love movies. And so you want to make movies that you want to see, really. And I think it's like a real privilege to get to like you know theoretically pay myself and work in films. And I just love doing it. So if you're making films with your really great friends, I don't really, to me, there's nothing else I want to do. So if I need to get inspired, I really can just like watch a film I love, or like a film I haven't discovered yet. And I really love it. And like I said, like continuing to like talk to friends wherever they are, people that I've met over the years that inspire me, that like, that I just like, I don't know, I do just love it. And so it's hard sometimes, but that's why you kind of need like a core group that like supports you, and people to talk to that like get it. Because when you don't work in film, it's hard to like kind of relate on the specifics, the nuance of like why it's challenging. So I think for those low moments, it's good to have those people. And then, but yeah, keeping me going is just watching movies.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so just one more thing before I let you go. Just in case, if there's anything you want to kind of like say to a young filmmaker who is getting started, is there anything else maybe that you want to mention in terms of helping people out and just giving them advice for doing what you do and being, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like I guess advice is like kind of what I've said, which is like find your people, or like find people you like that you want to make things with. But just be bold, don't be afraid. Like also approach people that have done it before. I mean, most generally I've been helped out by so many people over the years, and I'm sure people will always do the same. So, and I think it's like when you're starting out, you are experimenting. It is an art form, so you should just like, you know, chase that and not think about what people are expecting of you or of a project, etc. Because like that's the time in which you can have the most fun and be freest, like creatively. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome, Allison. I really appreciate you doing this for me and Elizabeth.
No problem, anytime.